Of Ghana. Now, let's move to our second issue. One person has died following an explosion that occurred in one of the pipelines carrying fuel from the Tema harbor to the Tema oil refinery. The fire, according to TOR officials who spoke to Joy News, was as a result of some people siphoning fuel from the pipeline. Firemen at the scene quickly managed to quench the fire. Joy News' Matilda Pemega was at the scene and interacted with some fire personnel and TOR officials at the fire scene. Let's have a look first.
The oil jetty to the refinery. So on reaching cocoa products at the entrance, we realized that there were a lot of people who were siphoning because we're siphoning products.
So people actually siphoning?
A lot. No, we drained because the leakage is just down here. So when it leaked, because of the incline, the slope, the product flowed through this drain to the entrance. We tried to restrain them to go away because it could cause fire. What happened was because the leakage was underneath the pipe, we could not see it until the security chap who works on the line saw it. There are a number of things we could always speculate. You see, the whole of this area, you have a lot of people who do their own thing here. And even we have a lot of rubbish around that end. So the least pack with petrol mixed with paper, mixed with combustibles, you can expect fire.
To us that now we can report of only one person. But we cannot tell whether the person is a personnel of TOR or we cannot, unless after the firefighting we can identify the person. But it's not the fire officer, fire personnel. Okay. The high tension pole fell
on the person.
On the person, you know, during the burning. It affected the high tension pole and it fell on the person, caught him up and he couldn't make it. A leakage in the pipeline that supplies refined fuel to the harbor for export. Okay. Yes. Okay. So that is the situation now. Okay.
Well, I need to commend the fire service personnel. I have seen that of the National Fire Service, that of TOR, together with that of Ghana Ports and Harbours Authority. They've been able to bring the fire under control, and we need to commend all the personnel and the security agencies right here. As at night, it's difficult to ascertain the cause of this fire. It is still early day yet, but you could see that from the beginning of the line, it's so weedy, you know. And I recall 42 years ago when we were young boys, we've been playing on this line. And I think that the management of TOR need to really position themselves very well. This is a very strategic NASA asset. It needs a lot of attention. There should be a 24/7 security monitoring on this line, because anybody who attempts to cause any damage to this line, the whole country is going to suffer. For example, what has happened now, if the engineers are to work now, you could see that it's going to affect the supply of fuel into the country. But I think that I don't want to apportion blame. TOR is so dear to my heart.
Well, this is today's big story. We'll take a break, and when we return, we'll speak to a public safety expert, and we'll get onto the line and speak to the Tema Regional Fire Commander. Stay with us. Welcome back. If you've just joined us, we're discussing two key issues today. The President has reassigned Bevelo Latte, National Security Coordinator, and his place is being replaced with BNI Director Yao Donko, who takes over from May 12. And the second issue we have is that one person has died as a result of an explosion of the pipeline at Tema oil refinery during the transport of fuel from the Tema harbor to Tema oil refinery. We're joined on the line now by Nanaya Akwada, who is Executive Director at the Bureau of Public Safety. Good evening and thanks for joining us on today's big story. Good evening, sir, and thanks for joining us on today's big story. I'm afraid we have lost Nanaya Akwada. We'll try to bring him back on the telephone. So, like I said, we're discussing the issue involving the explosion of a pipeline at Tema oil refinery area, in which one life has been lost. We don't know as of yet what caused the fire, but indications were that people were siphoning fuel from this burst pipe when it caught fire and leading to the death of one person. As you heard officials there speaking about it, the fire affected the electricity pole, which fell on the individual. Eventually he died, although he was rescued. Nanaya Akwada, Executive Director of the Bureau of Public Safety, joins us again. Thanks for
Chief Officer.
Thanks for joining us, sir.
Thank you very much for having me.
Right, so you are the regional fire commander, right?
No, please.
Nanaya Akwada, I'm sorry, yeah. I got a feedback, I got a wrong feedback. So, Nanaya, it's great to have you on the show. Now, this is a serious issue. We've had this happening in situations away from Accra, somewhere in the regions where fuel tankers break down and people rush to siphon the fuel and it leads to fire. What should we be doing as a country to protect such a sensitive installation of this nature?
Well, let me say a very good evening to your viewers. I think that this is a very unfortunate incident, especially coming on the heels of just yesterday, which was the World Day for Safety and Health at the workplace, and then launching of the National Safety Council. It's a very unfortunate incident. What we look at is we must begin to commit ourselves to public education. Public education, education and education. Because my understanding of how things unfolded in the last 3 days or 2 days was that there's been a fuel leakage. Tema oil refinery has taken steps to, cordon off the area to contain the fuel. But somehow the fuel was not very easy to contain. So people, while the oil refinery staff was taking care of the leakage on one side, the public also was trying to take advantage of the leakage on the other side. And as traffic flowed and increased to the leakage point, some of these things do happen. So what we think is that once some of these things happen, I've seen elsewhere that the fire service have taken steps to cordon off an area, in some cases bringing in the police to help keep the public away. But it should have been here this afternoon to see how the general public, if you like, for want of a better word, misconducted themselves, running up to where the fire was taking place. The police spent a lot of effort trying to ward them away.
But
so I think that...
Yeah. Now, my concern really is that, you were talking about public education and then maybe teaching the members of the public how to discipline themselves in the event of such fires. But the key issue here is also that it is a responsibility of TOR and perhaps the National Security Installation to protect such a sensitive property and also make sure that people first do not get access to the pipelines. I mean, I've been to the place before. I've lived in Tema, and I know that the pipelines are open. Everybody can just walk close to the pipeline and get access to it. Couldn't it have been cordoned off with barbed wires or something?
Well, the restricting access to the pipelines is a major issue that in the coming days, I believe the National Safety Council will even want to take up, or the Bureau of Public Safety will even want to take up with the management of TOR. But I'm speaking in direct reference to how things unfolded this morning or this afternoon. That while there was leakage, it wouldn't even matter that if you cordon off the area, while there is leakage, the leakage will definitely go beyond that boundary. And if you know how fuel and fire behaves, all it needs is an ignition source. It will travel right up to the source of fuel. And that's what I am talking about, that if we intensify education, that when a fuel is leaking from a source that is really a supply source, it is not wise to get close to that drain. It is not wise to go siphoning fuel. And that's how come one person got trapped up, when the fire took place. So I think we must intensify public education, because this is one too many that we are beginning to see in this country. And for the issue of restricting access to their pipelines, is a matter that we will be looking at in the coming days.
Right. So are you able to tell us, I mean, from the information you're giving us, I gather that you have close information from the ground. Are you able to tell us what has been attributed to this fire in the first place? How did the fire start?
Well, I have some information, but unfortunately, I'm unable to disclose now because, some of these information sometimes has to go through some processes and all that because it becomes public knowledge. I wouldn't want to be the one to be breaking that.
Why? So let's generalize. Was it human error?
I am unable to confirm.
And you can't even also tell us whether it was somebody who was smoking and dropped a smoke somewhere, or I mean, because maybe
at the moment, all I can tell you is that the leakage went beyond the boundaries of the pipeline, and then found an ignition source. I'm unable to say whether it was someone who was smoking or a motorbike, because motorbikes had come to park and they were filling their tanks and all. And there were what we usually call in local language, bola around the place. So the ignition source could have been anything from the motorbike engines to a common spark from a drop of key. So I'm unable to really put a finger on it, what led to the ignition source. But I think that so far the information that we have is something that we want to keep close to our chest until the official sources come up to make it public.
Right, that's very fair. So are you also able to tell us the extent, how this is going to affect fuel supply in general? Should we be concerned that perhaps because of the broken down pipe or burnt pipe, fuel supply might be restricted for a while?
Not at all. I'm not in a position to speak to that.
Right, okay, thank you very much. Nana Akwada is the Executive Director of the Bureau of Public Safety. We've been trying to get the Tema Regional Fire Commander Guilford Tete Adams, but we are not able to reach him. This is today's big story, and that's where we draw the curtains. We'll be right back, and then we will continue with the interactive segment with Marian Turi. Stay with us.